Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to the latest edition of the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. It's Jeremy Betz, your host for this show every Sunday night, brought to you by the Steel Curtain Network. This week, I am joined by a special guest, a guy I have been wanting to do a podcast with for a long time now, and that is Big Bro Rich Schofield. Rich, how you doing tonight, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, Jeremy. It's interesting. You're one of the few folks Dave and I were not able to get onto our show.
Yeah, we'll have to do that
most
sometime.
Everybody else has come on our show before they've gotten into their own regular show. We've had them come on with us first, to kind of introduce them to everybody, but that didn't happen for you.
Yeah, I can't remember if your show started after mine did or if mine came in after yours. I don't remember because I did the Steelers fantasy football fix for a while back in 2020. So I don't remember when you guys started your podcast, but
we were in 20. We started. It actually started with Dave, and he had the regular Tuesday night show, and I don't even remember when it was. Might have been 2019 or right there in 2020.
Yeah.
But we've had almost everybody else on our show except for you. And I'm not sure why that happened. Maybe I'll have to. You know what? It's just another thing for me to give Dave a really bad time about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be his fault. He's the guy who handles all this, right?
That's right. I'm the big brother, but he's the one in charge of the podcast. So it's
that's right.
It's his fault.
Are you the biggest brother? Are you the oldest in the family?
No, I have an older sister.
You do? Okay.
Yep.
I got you.
So there are 4 Schofield siblings, 2 boys, 2 girls, and it went girl, boy, girl, boy. So Dave is the baby.
Go. Yeah, man. So I'm the oldest son, the oldest child of 4 as well. 3 boys in a row and then a baby girl at the end, but can't say that anymore. We're all married and living hopefully happily ever after. You and I were talking before the show. It's not quite always happily ever after, but ever after as it is.
Yeah, I was going to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I was telling Jeremy, this has been the most hectic, almost downright lousy Father's Day I have ever had. So
yeah, well, hopefully we can brighten things up on this show today. This is the show where we answer your questions. If you have questions for us about the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you want our humble opinions on the black and gold, go ahead and fire those off in the comment section. We will get to those. But Rich, while we're waiting for questions, I think it's an important time of year for the Steelers. They're heading off their separate directions, all the players, coaches, for the final month of me time, if you will, before things really get going. And I don't know if you got a chance to watch the snippet that the Steelers put out on social media from Mike Tomlin giving his end of mini camp speech to the guys and talking about how they need to stay prepared and stay ready and stay mentally sharp and get better every year. They're expected to get better. And that goes into this next month as well. It's time off for them, but staying mentally sharp is going to be huge as they head into one of the more physical and one of the best training camp in the NFL at Latrobe. What are you thinking and excited about for this next month as the Steelers prepare for training camp?
Well, first I'll just say a little bit about Coach Tomlin, kind of what he had to say there at the end of camp. I really liked it. It was kind of sending the message to the guys, hey, you're going to go have a month of you time. Some of you are going to take vacations. You're going to spend some time with family. You're going to do those things. But he was basically saying to them, don't lose focus on what our plans are as a team. We want you to go enjoy that, but don't forget about the Steelers. And I think in Coach Tomlin's own, it being Father's Day, I'll say fatherly way.
Yes, absolutely.
Was kind of hinting at the guys saying, please be thinking of our season before every decision you make. Do not go out there in the next 4 weeks and do something totally stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. TJ Watt, be careful by your pool, man.
Yes. TJ Watt, be careful at your pool. Hey, if you're going to go on vacation and go, some of these guys, and you're going to go hang out in the bar, do not go get tanked and get,
Yep.
somebody catch you on their phone, doing something wild or stupid. Do not get caught with a DUI. Sorry, Coach Huggins at WVU. He spent his last time after a DUI in Pittsburgh this weekend.
Yeah.
So I like that from Coach Tomlin. Training camp. Look, in terms of what the Steelers might pull off before training camp, I'm not even sure. I mean, I am just so enamored, I guess would be a great word right now, by the things that Omar Khan has done with his team. I can't even begin to guess. I think I saw somebody threw up there that first question talking something about that. Yep, here it was. Where Thomas said, "Hey, I want to know Rich thinks we're going to pick up next, big signing like Chase." You know what, Thomas? Something like that really wouldn't surprise me.
Right, absolutely.
But right now, I'm really at a point where it's hard for me to guess. It used to be a little easier with Kevin Colbert, I felt, because typically you could look at kind of, hey, where the Steelers still maybe missing a couple pieces. They'll do something mid-range. They'll do something here or there. I don't know what Omar Khan could pull out of his hat. So I expect something else to probably happen before camp.
Yeah, I agree. Here,
exactly what it is, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but there's some holes to fill. Extra BLK says, why is there no talk about Danielle Hunter instead of Chase Young? That's a good question too. He's obviously a member of the Minnesota Vikings, but he's been not necessarily unhappy, but kind of somebody that they've been hesitant to keep on the roster for any large amount of money. And I know that he wants to prove himself. So, he's a guy still young. I think he's only like 27, 28 years old, despite having quite a successful career and a long career to this point as well. I think he came into the league at like 20 years old or something like that. Been playing for a long time already. So yeah, I can see, the why that question would be there. It's intriguing to me though, when you look at the Steelers additions. A lot of what they've done this year is make additions based on previous experience with that player, especially in the free agency realm. You talk about Isaac Seumalo, you talk about Nate Herbig, those guys coming over from Philadelphia, where our assistant GM Andy Weedle has been for several years before coming to Pittsburgh. I think even Cole Holcomb, they had somebody on the staff had prior experience with him as well. So you're talking about the areas where there's prior experience. From what it seems like, Mike Tomlin did a lot of digging, did a lot of research into Chase Young, even though he knew he couldn't get him early in the draft. He's somebody that they did a lot of tape study, a lot of watching film of. Obviously, Ohio State player. The Steelers have an affinity for Ohio State players. He's a guy that Mike Tomlin at least would have prior experience with, getting to know him very well. That's why I think the Chase Young rumors are so fiery right now. And you've got our own Jeff Hartman getting inside information straight out of the Steelers front office on that. So or somebody with access to the Steelers front office. And so you're talking about that kind of getting going that way. But Danielle Hunter is a very intriguing name. Do you have any thoughts on why he could be in the conversation?
Well, I think you hit most of the reasons why he should still be in the conversation. And this is another point I'll bring up about Omar Khan. Right now, we're hearing everything about Chase Young. That doesn't mean Omar Khan's not doing work on the back end and looking into Danielle Hunter or anything like that. It's just that we've picked up that there was a little bit of interest maybe in Chase, and as fans, we've all kind of run with it.
Right.
That does not mean that nothing has been said about Danielle Hunter, or they're not potentially exploring anything there. It's just nothing has leaked out about that, so fans aren't talking about it.
Right. Let's pop up the next question here from Ciro Kamai. I hope I'm saying that right. Is there coverage linebacker on the roster, or do they need to acquire one? That's going to be a question we're going to be asking even into training camp, I think, unless you see a move. Do you see a move in the Steelers' near future at inside linebacker? Or do you feel like they feel comfortable with Cole Holcomb or maybe Mark Robinson kind of filling that coverage linebacker role, or maybe a safety dropping down like maybe Keanu Neal? What do you think about that?
I would, if we don't go out and look into potentially something more in the coverage linebacker, I expect to see more 3 safety set.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially dropping somebody like Neal down into the box a little more and kind of become that coverage linebacker. Would not surprise me at all. So I think that one can kind of be answered in the fact that I'm not sure that the Steelers are happy with their coverage linebacker. If they go and get one, it would not surprise me. Actually, where it really wouldn't surprise me if it didn't happen until after training camp.
Yeah. Cut downs and things like that. Yep.
They may go look through the cut downs, but I think right now the Steelers are comfortable with saying, okay, we're okay with what we have. And if we need more coverage, we have it in the safety area that we could work into there. So I don't think the Steelers are panicking over that right now.
I would tend to agree with you there. And I think you bring up a fantastic point about after training camp, because there may be situations across the scope of 32 teams where you get a rookie or second year player at a position like linebacker where they just show out in training camp and in preseason. And even if there's not an injury to maybe said higher paid starter that's ahead of that rookie, if that rookie shows out, if that second year player shows out and earns a job, and a team's like, well, we can pay this guy his rookie salary, or we can pay this guy that we bought for big bucks on the free agent market and probably get the same type of play out of either one. We're gonna go ahead and cut the higher price guy and stay with our young buck here. So you got all sorts of situations that could develop for the Pittsburgh Steelers, for any of the teams across the league as we get closer to the start of the regular season. So much time left on the clock here. Fantastic question, though, from Ciro. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, I apologize. Afton, one of our top listeners here on the Sunday Night Q&A, asks, who is the partnership you most want to see this season? TJ and Alex, Pat Pete and Joey Porter Jr., Cam and Keanu? There's several to look forward to here. I think I'll go ahead and answer this one, Dave, before I turn it over to you. For me,
Rich. Please don't call me Dave. Please.
I apologize, man.
Oh, that's all right.
Rich, that is my bad. I'm going to go ahead and answer this, Rich, with TJ and Alex. Those two guys, to me, are going to be the driving force behind the success of the Steelers defense and their ability to get after quarterbacks. It's going to do everything for the guys on the back end. I obviously excited for Patrick Peterson and Joey Porter Jr. and Corey Trice on the back end, but I'm ready to see the strength of this team in full force for a full season after we've seen Alex Highsmith really take the next step. So TJ Watt, stay healthy, buddy. Alex Highsmith, stay healthy. Let's see what you guys can do. Let's see the numbers you guys can produce and how good this defense can be because of that. That's what I'm looking forward to most. You got an answer for this question?
Yeah, I do. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing Cam and Keanu. Basically because, I look at this as Cam Hayward really coming towards the twilight of his career. And I think Keanu might have the right kind of mindset to really take on some mentorship from Cam Hayward and could really learn a lot and could really help set the Steelers defensive line up in a good way for the next several years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you're talking duos that need to have high impact, those two guys are a big deal. Keanu Benton's going to be asked to play multiple positions on the defensive line. And you've got a guy in Larry Ogunjobi that obviously you're hoping plays kind of that 3-4 defensive end role for the Steelers opposite Cam Hayward, but he's had an injury history. Keanu Benton is a guy who can play, like I said, multiple spots. So he's gonna be asked to do a lot. Hopefully this kind of lines up with what we're talking about here. This question from Thomas. says, how many of our rookies do you think will actually get on the field for game 1 against San Fran? Fantastic question. Rich, what do you think?
If you really go back and I'll take it. You can call me Dave here for a second because I'm going to go with a Dave type of thought on this. If you really go back and you look and you crunch it up all the numbers, the number you would really be best at saying is 1. Potentially 1 rookie starting game 1 against San Francisco.
Is that Broderick Jones for you?
I would probably lean that way. It's probably either going to be Broderick Jones or Joey Porter Jr. It's going to be one of the two of them will potentially come out, and basically they won't be given the starting spot right away, but they will perform so well in the preseason that the Steelers will not be able to keep them off the field, first game at home against San Francisco. Everybody else, I would say there'd be 2 or 3 others. We're going to see 2 or 3 games in potentially, but probably not game 1.
Sure. I think the the term like starting, that's something, we can debate there. But as for, like the question here was
get on the field.
Get on the field. That's a little more interesting to me. I think Darnell Washington sees the field a lot in week 1. I think, Broderick Jones is probably the guy you're pegging to start. Hopefully, you spent that first round pick on him. You want him to be your starting left tackle. You want him to be better than Dan Moore Jr. if that's the case, or you want Dan Moore Jr. to just blow everybody's socks off and become a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. That's kind of your hopes there. But Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, those 4 guys to me kind of hit the number here as we'll probably see those guys in some capacity in week 1. But as far as starters go, I agree with you. Maybe just 1 getting on the starting roster, if you will.
Right. In terms of getting on the field, then that gets a little tougher to call, actually, because what do we consider getting on the field? Are special teams getting on the field? Because a special team gets on is considered rookie. We could have an undrafted free agent on the roster that will actually see the field in game 1 because they potentially play special teams.
Yeah.
So actually, Thomas, that question becomes really good and actually is a really tough breakdown because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be really unique this Steelers season because you've got a draft class that we all have really high hopes for. And if that's the case, then you're hoping to see those guys sooner rather than later. But you've got also guys that you drafted for big time roles as well. I think Darnell Washington is going to be one of the big role players on this offense just because of what he'll be asked to do to be involved in the passing game and in red zone opportunities, to be involved in the running game, in the RPO game, whatever Matt Canada wants to run, he can help you because he can work as a blocker, he can work as a receiver, and really just give you a leg up, a mismatch, if you will, on the defenses that they will play, especially a good defense like San Francisco in week 1. Get as many mismatches on the field as you can against those boys. Here's a good question from Brian Mizwa. Don't we once again open a roster spot? Do you think Khan has something up his sleeve? I haven't counted recently, Rich, but I do believe it is still 89 players on the roster.
I believe so, because we who was that we released the other day? It was somebody I, of course, had never heard of, but we did release somebody.
And wide receiver, I think, maybe. Or
so I believe there is one spot. You never know with Omar Khan, as as I like to call him, the con man, he's a magician. You don't know what he might have up his sleeve.
Yeah, you really don't. And, with the 90th spot on the roster, you'd hope for that guy to be a high impact player, but most likely what's going to happen is it's going to be just a guy that they have familiarity with from the college ranks, or a guy who gets cut from another roster that they want to bring in as a body. Maybe somebody on defense, another wide receiver. That's probably the more likely outcome here. but you never know. Like you said, with Omar Khan, it could be a really incredible. Brian Brown has a question for us. Do you guys think this was the Steelers' best draft since the 70s? It's kind of premature to make a final decision on that.
He actually then came a couple of things down and said,
Did he?
potentially.
Potentially. Okay.
Potentially.
Okay. Yep. So go for it.
This draft might be the one I'm most excited about in a long, long time. And as an overall draft class, now, of course, we have drafted players that I've been extremely high on. I just go back to when we landed Ben Roethlisberger that year. I couldn't believe he fell that far, and the Steelers were able to draft him. And as you see, that turned out great. This particular draft class has me excited because it would, if say 4 or 5 of them work out to their potential, this could be one of those magical drafts like a few of those we had in the 70s.
I agree with you. And as a more recent study, the Seahawks draft class last year that put so many starters on the field, including Tariq Woolen, Kenneth Walker, their running back. They had some other players on the offensive line that were major contributors from that rookie class, a really solid rookie class that helped lead that team to the playoffs. You can even look at the Jets rookie class from a couple years ago or from last year as well, with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson kind of leading the way until Breece Hall's injury. There's been some really good draft classes that have taken teams over the top as competitive goes, and the Steelers could have very well landed a draft class like that for sure. Here's another question. Deal with it. One of my favorite names on the chat. I'm hearing Holcomb going to be our 3-down backer with Roberts as our run stopper. Not sure about backup depth though, except for Robinson, and the way it sounds, he won't be starter till next season. Not necessarily a question, but an observation, I guess. Do you feel comfortable if Cole Holcomb is our 3-down linebacker going into 2023?
The question isn't so much as if I'm comfortable. The question is the coaching staff comfortable? I would imagine if the coaching staff is not comfortable with that, we'll definitely see a move of some sort.
Yeah. Well, Rich, I know Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan have you on speed dial for your opinion though on these matters. So, if you're not comfortable with it, they might.
When Coach Tomlin gets on the phone with me or actually sends me an email, he's more of an email guy. I'll make sure to just really point out my concern. Really is what I see as the overall talent at inside linebacker in terms of depth, because we're really looking at 3 guys, and there are 3 guys that all have some question marks.
Yes, they do.
Which really isn't much different from where we sat last year at this time.
Right. Very much so.
So,
you had a guy.
So there, as a fan, I'm going to say, there's still got to be some concern there, because we were sitting in the same exact spot last year. We've changed out a couple of the faces, and we're right back where we were.
Yeah, Dilwood, right, though. Cole Holcomb has been talked up. There's been several articles from insiders in Pittsburgh. There's been, talk from inside the building that he was the prize of free agency for them. That's what they wanted to add to their defense. And Isaac Seumalo has kind of been in that category as well. But as far as getting him on defense, it seems like the Steelers were like, this is the guy we want. They were targeting him. It wasn't just, these other guys are gone, so let's settle for Cole Holcomb. He kind of was the guy that was on their radar as far as what they wanted to spend and the type of skill set that he possesses. I really like Landon Roberts as a blitzing linebacker, as a run stuffing linebacker, but he's got some injury history. I believe a foot injury from last year was an issue. So we're going to have to see if these guys can be healthy. And I totally 100% agree with you. Depth is a little scary at inside linebacker. And I've always said, I don't know if you agree before we go to break here, that the Steelers defense is really never right unless they have an all-star linebacker playing the middle and roaming the field. It's never the steel curtain of old, if you will, the early 2000s defenses that were just so good with Larry Foote and James Ferrier manning the middle, even Ryan Shazier coming into his own. You could see that defense starting to work in 2017 before his injury. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Steelers can overcome that. Let's go to break real quick, and when we come back on the audio side, we will keep answering questions here on the live broadcast, though. We're not going anywhere. Just stick with us. We will be right back on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. And we're back, Rich, on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A, brought to you by the Steel Curtain Network. If you're not following the Steel C Network on Twitter or Facebook, if you're not subscribed to us, you need to do so. We're bringing you content every single day, multiple times a day, all the Steelers content you could ask for and more. Rich, I know this has been an exciting time for us on the podcast side, but we're getting into kind of the doldrums of the offseason here. So what we're trying to talk about is storylines that can keep us excited through the dull part of the offseason. For the title of the show, I kind of had it named after the famous Simon and Garfunkel Sound of Silence song. So we're talking, what are the Steelers' sounds of silence during this offseason? Let's get to some more questions here. Matthew Bunk asks us, is Alex Highsmith going to get a contract extension before the season? It's been a lot of talk, Rich. What do you think?
I really think it probably gets done before the season. This is another one that may not happen before the end of training camp, but I would imagine probably somewhere going into before that last week before the start of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot on the table for both sides. I think like Alex Highsmith, and if he has another double-digit sack season, couldn't he be in line for just a massive payday somewhere else? So it never really made sense to me from his angle, except for the fact that he really likes being in Pittsburgh, likes the team dynamic that they've built, obviously. So I think if you're the Steelers, you do everything you can to get this guy under contract this year before he goes and has another 14, 15 sacks and prices himself right out of the Steel City. That's going to be an interesting piece to watch here over the next few weeks. Here's a question. Aquatic Life says, there is only one true question. Are we, the Steelers, who we thought we are? Shout out to Coach Dennis Green. If it is true we are a playoff contender, almost automatically, not just I'm sorry. If it is true we are a playoff contender, almost automatically, not just a playoff team. So he's saying we're a contender for potentially a championship if the Steelers are what we've talked them up to be this offseason. Are you hitting the brakes a little bit on that conversation, Rich, or do you think the potential of this team has them right where they want to be?
I tend to pump the brakes on that one just a little bit. Because some of what we would be depending on at this point in time for the Steelers are very young players. We're talking a lot of players in their first and second years, and a couple just in their third year. We are not, at our skilled positions in particular, we're not a particularly veteran team.
You're very true.
Which can make them a little bit unpredictable. There are going to be some spots this season where you're going to see the Steelers have some growing pains. I would say this team's probably going to win some games that people might not think they can, and we're all going to be excited and think, oh my gosh, they're ready to make the push. Super Bowl, here we come. And then they'll turn around a week or two later and lose to somebody we have no business losing to.
Yes.
That's what a young team has a tendency to do from time to time. So I'm trying to, for my own personal sanity, put this at a place where I'm going to understand that it could be that kind of year where they win some games we don't expect them to win. They could lose a game or two we don't expect them to lose. I see the Steelers could get into the playoffs and make a little noise. Again, if they just happen to come in and get hot at the right time, I see the talents there.
Yeah.
The question is just about how are they playing at a particular time.
Yeah. I think the schedule's very favorable for them to be in the conversation as, yeah, we've got maybe even one of the better records in football on the AFC side, but there's going to be questions then about the legitimacy of it if they haven't played a lot of big name teams. Drawing the AFC South this year was a big boost for them. I've predicted for the last several weeks now that the winner of the AFC North will be the number 1 seed in the AFC because they have the benefit of playing those AFC South teams. And the NFC West, you've got a couple tough teams, and then you've got the Rams and the Cardinals that seem to be working through some major issues. So you've got some the potential to, with the other teams you're playing as far as your schedule goes, to jump out to some big wins early, and maybe even ride that wave to a high seed or at least a high wild card seed. So let's move on to a good question here from Sherry Richards. Do you think the offense can improve enough to average 24 points a game? If it does, watch out. I agree with that. If it does, watch out. Rich, do you think this offense can be that good, that efficient on a per game basis?
I think they could. I really think it comes down to the jump we see from Kenny Pickett from year 1 to year 2.
Yes.
If he makes a nice big sophomore jump and just has a better grasp of the offense and the system, the weapons are there that they could do it.
I agree with you there. And I think also the formula we saw at the end of last season, you just got to score more touchdowns when you get down in the red zone. I mean, these long drives, they were working, but a lot of them ended in field goals. A lot of them ended in stall outs. And Chris Boswell didn't have his best year last year either. So we had some missed kicks if we couldn't quite get into the red zone. So more efficiency in scoring position is going to help this team a lot. And I think the way they want to play football with that ground and pound, it's going to be up to Kenny Pickett in situational football, red zone football, third downs. It's going to be up to him and those playmakers to take the team to the next level, maybe add some more explosion to the offense as well. But overall, I think, efficiency has kind of been my key word this whole offseason for the offense. Get more efficient, and a lot of those concerns go away. 24 points a game with this defense would give me some warm fuzzies about their potential throughout the season. I don't know if do you see another question here? Rich, I'm trying to find one here.
Let's try there. Claude says, do you believe that the Steelers have a top 5 defense?
I do. I really do. And I think that it's going to depend a lot on how the secondary can gel quickly. But I think with the front 7, they've got a real shot to be.
I think they have the shot to be. I'm not really ready to put them there yet. And the only reason I'm not ready to put them there is that there are just too many new pieces for me to feel comfortable saying, yes, they're here. Because until I really get a chance to see some of these, free agents and young players get in and try to gel with what was already there, it's tough for me to say, yes, they're a top 5 defense. I would say they are a top 10 defense where they sit now with the potential to be a top 5.
Yeah, it's there's some ifs. I talked about that with Jeff Hartman on the Let's Ride podcast on Friday. There's some ifs, and when we get the answer to what those ifs are on defense, that's when we'll get to determine that. If we stay healthy at outside linebacker and the pass rush is what we hope it can be. If the safety group can work in the 3 safety rotation, Keanu Neal's not so far past his prime that can't keep up. If Patrick Peterson in that cornerback room can really work together, it's young and it's aging as all at the same time, that room. So how does that hold up? It's going to be very interesting. Let's see, was an offensive question here as well that I'm missing now. Let's see. I am sorry, I'm not seeing the question anymore, but yeah, I really do think with that that top 5 defense question, if you get a Steelers team that can really just find itself and rely on their coaching and how Terrell Austin's going to set up that defense to make them all work together. If they can develop communication quickly, then they're going to start to become a dangerous unit. I like to pull this one up because I think this is huge for fans kind of on the outside looking in. It's how the coaches feel about specific players, because they're the ones in the building the whole time. And we know that Keanu Benton was on the Steelers' radar almost from the beginning with the Senior Bowl. He was somebody that they were really looking at, and then that talk just kind of kept up. He's going to be the pick if he's there at some point in the second round. Turns out he was. Thomas says the coaches are really high on Benton. Looks like he'll be starting or playing right away. I think he's got a role to do so, and I think that what he says is very true. Mike Tomlin likes this guy, and that means he's going to get playing time.
Yeah, I think he likes what he brings, and I think he has continued to show, put in the type of work that Coach Tomlin likes. And if you continue to do that, and then when you're lined up across from guys, continue to produce, you're going to get opportunities.
Absolutely. Here's a question from Carrie, Jeremy, and Rich. Who will be camp favorites? That's always a fun question. You've got your Isaac Redman Award that we like to populate here at the Steel Curtain Network and BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for under the radar players that stand up during camp. I think you're going to find Darnell Washington as a camp favorite. I think Corey Trice is going to be a camp favorite. Did you have somebody?
Corey Trice was mine. That's where I felt. I just think that he's one that's going to become a camp favorite because everybody's going to continue to sit and look at him as a seventh round pick. And I'm sorry, that guy was not a seventh round pick. That guy was a steal where the Steelers got him. But because of him being a seventh round pick, when people see what he brings, I really have a feeling he's going to be somebody that we talk about a lot during camp.
Yeah, and I think some continuations from last year too, Jaylen Warren and George Pickens. I mean, they're going to be highlight reels in training camp, those two guys, because of their style of play. George Pickens comes down with all the fantastic catches. There's going to be a laser eye focus on him from the media as well, as far as his route running goes. And you're going to start seeing the clips coming out. You're going to start seeing the quotes coming out. If it's true, George Pickens looking really sharp on routes, comebacks and outs, and making strong cuts. And you're going to see a lot of that. If he improves there, I think he has a chance to be the standout of training camp for maybe even a second year in a row. Anybody else, though, that kind of sticks out to you as a guy that we could hear a lot of talk about?
What I'm interested to see is maybe that we may hear a lot actually about Holcomb because of the role he's been picked up and stepping into. We may end up hearing a lot about that if it looks like, oh, this guy was everything the coaches thought they were getting when they got him, and he looks like he could be the answer. We could hear a lot about that if he starts to show out.
Yeah, absolutely. Training camp is always so much fun, but this year it's going to be extremely fun because we're so high on this draft class. We're going to be following it closely. I know someone asked earlier, anybody from Steel Curtain Network going to make it up for training camp? I'm hoping to. I've never been to training camp. Rich, have you ever been to a training camp practice?
I was last year was my first. I plan on going again this year. I know Dave is trying to work on Jeff and Brian to see if they could get the three of them to get up there a day, or at least two of the three of them. So we are looking to try to get some folks up and around for training camp.
That'd be
I
awesome.
know I'll be trying to go probably probably not the first day, but one of the first few days there in pads prior to Friday Night Lights. That's when I'm probably going to try to get in there.
All right. I'm sure many of our listeners across Steelers Nation will be attending training camp. If you see one of us there, come up and talk to us. We would love to get to know our listeners for sure. Dave, we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes here. I'll keep looking for questions, but any final thoughts though from you as you found one? Let's go.
I found one. So I found this and thought, oh, it's Wes. He had a fantastic question here. There is one guy from last year's 53 that's still currently on this year's roster that you could cut. Who would it be?
Ooh. There was one guy from last year's 53 that is still currently on this year's roster that you could cut. That's tough, man. That's a tough ask. Probably Gunnar Olszewski. I don't think you need him. I think you've got
Correct.
guys that can handle kicks.
Yep. That is exactly where I was going to go.
Okay,
that is a guy that will be fighting for his life to make this roster.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm trying to think of anybody else that I would maybe. Is Kendrick Green still on the roster? I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
he
could go. He could go. I mean, at some point we might even see Kevin Dotson go, and that's not necessarily something I want to happen, but he may find himself on the outside looking in, and he obviously was unhappy with the Steelers' moves at interior offensive line based on some of his early comments. Maybe they got him to swing around that he could have a role on the team still. We've got, let's see here. We've got another question here from Afton. Which do you value more, players who make big splash plays or those who consistently move the chains or stop the chains from moving? Dave, do you have a preference here? Are you a consistency guy or a flashy guy? What you like? Did I call you Dave again?
You did.
Rich.
But that's okay. You need both. That's the thing. You need both on your team. You know, if you're just a team that's full of guys that make splash plays, you do not move the chains consistently enough to be efficient. But if you just have all these guys that all they do is just move the chains, sometimes we bog down as you get into the red zone and struggle to find the touchdown zone, as Brian Anthony Davis would say. So you need to find the right mix of guys that have that splash and guys that are those 100% dependable, make those tough catches over the middle to pick up first downs. So it's a matter of mix.
It is. And that's why I absolutely love the wide receiver combination of Santonio Holmes and Hines Ward, because you had both in those guys. And Hines Ward was your consistency play. He was your security blanket, and he was just so good. And Santonio Holmes could just take the top off the defense anytime. And we saw it in an epic Super Bowl run that will last in our memories as long as we think Steelers football. So I do have to defend myself a little bit here. Dave is here. So, I was just, asking Dave in the comments, Rich, that's what I was doing here.
Okay. Gotcha,
it wasn't necessarily directed at you.
Okay.
No, I will admit that I messed up again, but let's bring this one up too, because I think that this echoes our thoughts. Happy Father's Day to Wes. Happy Father's Day to everyone here. Thank you for joining us here on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. We're going to be back with more Q&As throughout the remainder of the offseason. I'll have different guests on, but Rich, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me this week. I think we got to a lot of questions. It's going to be fun to see how the Steelers, the sound of silence continues throughout this next month or so until training camp, the storylines that we see. And, maybe we'll have some splashy moves coming up from the con artist, the con man himself. Maybe nothing. Maybe it'll be quiet and we'll see those moves in or after training camp. But whatever it is, we will have it covered here on the Steel Curtain Network. Rich and Dave on the Big Bro Scho podcast that follows mine and Andrew Wilbar's Steelers Fix podcast on Tuesdays. Check that out if you haven't seen that before. They are both very fun listens, if I do say so myself. And you're going to have to check those out. Rich, any final words before we head out?
I always tell Dave, this is that little stretch. I call this, in terms of the NFL, this is your dog days of summer.
Yes,
from now to the start of training camp. I'm like you. If we're not hearing silence, the only sound I want to hear from the Steelers has to be related to Omar Khan. If I'm
There
hearing
you go.
something that Omar Khan wasn't playing a part in, it's probably not good.
Right.
So
I agree.
so I will be okay with silence unless the sound that's coming is coming from Omar Khan's office.
Yeah. No news
Other
is
than
good
that,
news, ladies and gentlemen.
other than that, stay excited. Look forward to training camp, and I think somebody said up there, I think it was Wes or somebody saying to let us know. Trust us, Wes, as we get going and get closer and closer to training camp. I think all our shows will be talking about if they're planning on attending at any point in time, and we will be trying to let our fans know when folks from Steel Curtain Network will be attending training camp, just in case any of you are there the same day, because we love to meet up with anybody that would be there.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of you who piped in on the comment section. We appreciate you. You are the one who makes this show work. And so thank you for joining us this time on the Steelers Sunday Night Q&A. For Rich Schofield, I'm Jeremy Betz. We'll talk to you next time. And I don't have my music ready, Rich. How about that? Let me pull that up here and get us out of here on the right note, actually.
Okay.
Let's try that again. For Rich Schofield, I'm Jeremy Betz. Have a great night.